Well, congratulations to you, Peter. You deserve all the success and more. And number one, but number two, I know your earlier pieces were made in steel, correct?
Yeah, I still have a few from the original collection remaining, yeah.
And now, let me ask you, I mean, obviously there's a lot of thought, innovation, R&D, a lot of different things that go into making your timepieces. And obviously with the exclusive nature of how many you make, there's you know, it's very clear why the prices are the prices. But in terms of competing with these brands, which as much as you're not, you know, you don't want to be these brands, you don't want to make brands that are, you don't want to be sort of mass produced. How do you see it in terms of a person looking at your brand and a person looking at a brand that does have heritage, more heritage than your brand? How do you see that as, do you see that as an obstacle? Do you see it as a choice, or?
It's an education. You cannot look at one of my pieces and compare it to a vacheron or a paddock.
Right.
You can compare a paddock and a vacheron and an Audemars. That makes sense. They produce literally hundreds of thousands of pieces every year.
Right.
They are all, in a sense, angling for the same commercial market, and they're in competition with each other. When you look at people like myself, you could compare me, Peter Speake-Marin, with Romain Gaultier, François Paul-Jean, Philippe Dufour. We all make very different watches, but you can compare in relation to whether we make 30 pieces or 500 watches.
Boutique brands.
We're a different type of maker. There, within that group, there's a logic. Philippe Dufour makes exceptional, very Swiss timepieces, which are made to a superlative level. François Paul-Jean makes slightly fairly Swiss-styled watches, but he has developed his own style. He used a very early style, sort of Calatrava case from 1920s, 1930s, and that is an identification of who he is. Gaultier has also taken a little bit of a Calatrava, one of the most classic cases in history, and then the time and the energy goes into making a highly defined, beautiful movement. I mean, he goes on, I could talk about the Gronefelds, the McGonagalls, but each piece is that person.
Absolutely.
And in our world, in the independent world, they're the kind of people that if you want to make comparisons, if you want to make, if you want to try to analyze one person by another in a logical fashion, then you need to make those kind of comparisons amongst those kind of people, not amongst the big brands, because it just doesn't make sense. There's no way, without the knowledge of what I do, or what Gaultier does, or what Dufour does, to be able to make a pertinent appraisal of our watches. And if somebody does try to make a comparison between, for example, a Dufour and a Rolex,
there's a problem there.
There's something fundamentally.
But I guess the reason I ask that question, Peter, is not to make stupid comparisons by any means, but because of the fact that you are in stores like Chatel that have other brands besides, you know, that have the Panerais and the Manometros and all these other brands.
I'm in a small group of retailers around America.
Right.
I can't work with companies, for example, like Tourneau or Vempi, because for the most part, those kind of companies, clients go through the door to try the watches on for validation of a decision that they probably already partially made because of the amount of publicity that goes out.
Of course.
The people that I am almost obliged to work with are those kind of retailers that are passionate about watchmaking, have a higher level of experience and knowledge in the industry, and are actually prepared to take the time to educate their clients as to what I'm about, what my work is about, why it costs what it costs, why it is special, why it is different, and not only for me but also for other independents. So realistically, there are not a huge number of those people around, but at the same time, I'm not producing a huge number of watches. But I am very careful about choosing those people that I work with, so that the message that I'm trying to put across in my work can be then expounded through those people almost as ambassadors of my work. So otherwise, it gets just too confusing. And I've had this experience before, where you put Speake-Marin in a boutique where you have Chaumet and Rolex. There is no congruency, there is no logic, unless there is somebody there who can actually say, okay, these guys made 50,000 watches a year, this guy makes 50 watches.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
And the reason is this: this is a caliber which is producing it's a great caliber, very precise, very accurate, but it's entirely made by machine. This caliber is entirely finished by hand, assembled by hand, and there's only X number of them actually.
Much more exclusive,
yeah.
There's no question.
I mean, you have one kind of client who's going to buy the Rolex, another one who buys the Patek Philippe, and the other that will buy a Philippe de Fort.
Yeah.
And in each of those steps, there tends to be an education, a knowledge which is assimilated along the route. Because of internet, because of you, this knowledge is becoming further and further widespread. And if it hadn't been for blogs, web forums, I don't think that individuals like myself would have actually had the opportunity to educate and touch enough people to explain what it is we do, why we do it, and why it actually has the value.
Oh, Peter, thank you for the shout out, buddy.